Well, hello everyone, and welcome to DAMM Asia Pacific 2022. I'm delighted to introduce our conference chair, Andrew Lomas. Thank you, Andrew. Over to you.
Hello, good morning, good afternoon, and potentially good evening to all of you across Asia Pacific and the regions that we're presenting to today. And thank you once again to join us at this second annual Henry Stewart DAMM Asia Pacific event. I was just going through my notes this morning from last year, and I just realized it's exactly 365 days since our last one. So we managed to choose the 24th of March every year. But thank you for all the attendees from around this region and also the globe to talk about everything and celebrate what is digital asset management, or DAMM. We'd also like to thank our sponsors for supporting the event and invite you to visit them through the conference and exhibition tab to find out more about their products and services. My name's Andrew Lomas. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Creative Folks. We're based in Sydney, Australia, and we are a specialist solution and systems integration company. And at Creative Folks, my team empowers content creators and managers through the use of technology and ultimately DAMM extensively to underpin the solutions that we deliver. My involvement with Henry Stewart goes back many years, and the events that have been held in New York, Chicago, San Diego, and London have been a really great source of inspiration for me over the years. And I've watched as the DAMM industry and the use of the technology has matured through these events and through the speakers. And I'm really thankful, as I'm sure all of you are, that the Henry Stewart team have invested again in this important regionally focused event for all of us in the Southern Hemisphere time zone. And for you to know, they're actually staying up very late in London to support this particular number of sessions and event today. But to you, I'm very glad that you've been able to support and join today for a really interesting day of knowledge sharing and inspiration on digital asset management as a platform and how it can underpin digital transformations, global marketing, and of course, very important roles of preservation of our history and artifacts. Last year's event had a number of international speakers, but I'm really delighted that we've been able to curate some really valuable conversations from local organizations embracing DAMM and MAM technologies that deliver valuable outcomes for their staff, their customers, their audience, and the public at large. In Asia Pacific, we have somewhat of a disparate maturity in the adoption of DAMM. Some are yet to still experiment and realize the value, whereas others have moved into their second or third platform and are looking to DAMM to house and serve content as a much more modular and omnichannel level. And what goes on with that is extensive levels of automation and integration. In the sessions today, you'll listen to a wide range of use cases where DAMM supports functions that are key to organizations. Those key topics are metadata, change management, integration, artificial intelligence, automation, creative operations, archives, videos, workflows, rights, governance, and many, many more. And during the day, we have a focus on preservation, starting with the Australian Football League and later with a panel of the GLAM institutions, that is galleries, libraries, archives, and museums. For those of you who don't know what DAMM is and what gains they've made using DAMM to digitize their collections and what challenges they are facing with expectations in a growing need for infrastructure and tools to support them. From a product management perspective, for those of you who are looking for DAMMs to support your products and reselling of those, we've got Wizard Pharmacy, who are discussing, based in Perth, WA, discussing their integrated DAMM and product content automation project that has transferred the value they offer to their franchisees. And L'Oreal speak to the management of products and DAMM to support the complex processes across brands and regions. Now, this year's event's taken on a bit more of an interactive format with lots more Q&A opportunities. So I hope you take the opportunity to utilize the platform and send your questions to myself or John, who's the Managing Director of Insights and Analytics at Salt Flats, who'll be running the second tier of events later on in the day. All of these sessions will inspire you to think about how to use your DAMM. If you have one already, assuming so, and if not, consider how one can help you deliver on those goals you have set for the rest of 2022 and beyond. Now, on to the day ahead of us. We're starting with an amazing keynote from Monica and Spencer from the Australian Football League, or AFL, and how they spearheaded the preservation of the history of the sport. And they're going to share with us the enormity and risk associated with managing the delicate raw formats through to digitisation and ultimately surfacing that content and making it available for us all to consume and enjoy on demand. Following that, we have a tech lab session with Binder on building a better brand through experience. And then we split the day into 2 tracks, the second of which is managed by my colleague, John Horodisky, with sessions on Les Mills and World Vision. And then there's some more tech lab sessions with Woodwing, Wyden, and Adobe. And after that, we regroup at 15:40 Australian Daylight Saving Time, which is 14:40 in Queensland and 12:40 in Singapore time. The first one of those sessions after that is I'm privileged to host is with the leading GLAM institutions in Australia. And as I said, previously mentioned, the other stream is hosted by John, who'll be discussing the foundations of metadata. And John's a world expert on the subject. And I'm certainly going to log in afterwards at the end of the day onto the YouTube channel and watch his session quite closely, as it's something that I find quite dear to my heart. And I will also encourage you, if you're going to track 1 or 2, to then go to the YouTube channel that will be made available to you as registers, event attendees, should I say. So you'll be able to watch those presentations that you've missed. So don't fear, you will be able to get access to those particular presentations. Although to ask the questions, you obviously need to be attending. So a little bit of a sort of housekeeping in terms of the day-to-day ahead of us. What you need to do is make sure that you click on the exhibition tab throughout the event, check out the sponsor booths, and be in with a chance to win some great prizes. Also look at the competitions tab, where you can win free access to one of the Henry Stewart online educational courses, and the community feed, where you can post questions and polls for all attendees. And as I said before, during these sessions today, we encourage you to chat with our fellow attendees, and of course, make the most of our expert lineup by submitting your questions in the Q&A panel. I'll be curating those in the streams that I'm running and holding those questions to the side, and I'll ask them on your behalf, as will John in the second stream when he's doing that as well. You can also use the chat tab to get conversations going and navigate to the lounge tab, where you can participate in real-time networking with industry peers. And if at any point you get stuck on the platform, whatever you need some assistance with, there is a chat bot in the bottom right of the screen, which you can then communicate with the team that's supporting us over in London and the US. So now on with the show. I'm delighted to introduce our keynote speakers, Monica Forlano and Spencer Wilson from the Australian Football League, as they take us through the Australian Football League's move to content, marketing, and digital workflows. And lastly, a bit of housekeeping. For those of you who want to share things socially, the hashtag for today is DAMMAPAC. That's DAMMAPAC, DAMMAPAC. Please share your thoughts and ideas, Twitter, LinkedIn, whatever your preferred social channel is, and let's get some conversations going. So hello, Monica. Thank you for joining me here. Great to have you here with us today.
Thanks for having us.
Looking forward to it. Tremendous.
Okay, good to see you there, Spencer. Right, okay, if I click the right button, I can see everybody. Superb, right, brilliant. Starting off this session, as I said, we've got Monica, who's head of production, and Spencer, who is the operations and broadcast services manager from the Australian Football League, AFL, an institution in itself and a great sporting code that has a huge amounts of loyalty and passion within the country. What they've been doing is an extensive digitization of the historical tapes and footage of games and other content, and essentially a preservation project that's never been seen before. So as a bit of a summary to get started, I'm going to play a little video for you that Monica and Spencer have shared with me, which will take you through what the project entails and what they were looking to achieve. And then after this session, we're going to go into a little bit of a Q&A session where Monica and Spencer will talk a little bit more about the ins and outs and details of what they've achieved. So thanks very much, and just bear with me while I change the sharing, and I'll be back to you shortly.
Clever balking, spectacular high marking, accurate long distance kicking, cooperative and effective handball are some of the features of this robust Australian game.
At the AFL, we had a huge archive of 22,000 physical assets that had been stored in this air-conditioned room for many, many years. We had canisters of film dating back to 1909. That's how deep our archive goes. Outside of preserving the history of the game, the archive presented a fantastic opportunity to enable our strategy at the AFL of bringing fans closer to the game. The biggest challenge that we had is that the films and videotapes of various types in these compactors were degrading, and if we didn't do something, we may lose these precious historical moments forever. The opportunity of finally being able to digitise those files and be able to organise that content in a way that we can access at our fingertips has really allowed us to think about new product innovations, such as AFL On Demand, our entertainment streaming product that we'll soon see on connected TVs in Australia.
One of the challenges at the moment is, of course, in technology, is that the technology, in fact, to play and use linear videotapes is slowly becoming untenable. The machines and the technology or the people that realise how to service those devices are now almost becoming end of life. So there was two challenges. One is that the tapes themselves are degrading, and the other is the equipment to be able to retrieve the material from them is also becoming more difficult.
Probably the biggest benefit of digitising the archive from our media perspective is the rich metadata associated with the vision. It means our content creators can do a quick search in the media asset management system and pick the moments they need to tell their stories. We chose Delete Flex as our MAM and AWS for our storage as the best providers in the market to meet our needs. Building the MAM means we can now look to move all our production of content to the cloud, like edited packages of matches to create highlights, mini matches or full match replays, up and live on our channels and as close to real time as possible. We are pleased with how the project is going so far, and the next phase is to move our extensive stills archive onto the MAM.
AFL Photos provides the most comprehensive coverage of Australian rules football in Australia, and it captures the moments that tell the real stories of our great game. Our in-house team of photographers and support staff are responsible for the coverage of all aspects of the AFL, AFLW and talent competitions nationally for a multitude of internal and external stakeholders. As well as extensive match day coverage, media opportunities and special events are also included. The team specialises in capturing the imagery for AFL digital exclusive content, commercial shoots and creative player portraiture for our stakeholders. Our image collection also includes a rich historical archive. The volume of the images which we shoot, and often the speed in which the content is required, highlights the importance of accurate organisation and uniform metadata. From the photographer applying a base template to image captures in the field, through to our editors addressing errors and assigning metadata post-shoot, we deliver to the end user a robust and systematically organised database. Collectively, this workflow ensures our wealth of fantastic images are both searchable, used today, and will be used well into the future.
Wow, that was really interesting. That must have been one heck of an organisational nightmare getting all that content up to the digitisation. But we'll talk about that a little bit. So thank you very much for putting that together, and welcome Monica and Spencer to DAM Asia Pacific today. Thank you for joining.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Look, I just wanted to set the scene a little bit for everyone who's watching today. not everyone might know who the AFL is, but if you live in Australia, you will, and especially if you live in WA, Victoria, or other parts of the East Coast. But what does video? What's so important about video for the AFL and this exercise that you've gone through in terms of digitizing that content? You know, what role is DAMM going to play in sort of being able to create, I guess, new replays, long form content, other pieces of content, using that content that you've collected together and repurposing it? And tell us a little bit more about the value of the video and how the platform's going to help you deliver on that value.
So when I joined AFL Media back in 2019, it was pretty much website and app that was providing articles and the fixture and statistics of the game. And what we wanted to do was really grow the video side. And that was sort of I came in and Spencer and his team worked on that video side, and they'd been advocating for the preservation of the audiovisual archive for many years. So with our goal at AFL Digital, which is what we ended up becoming, we wanted to be the trusted home of all for footy fans and delivering what they want. And so we realised that we're sitting on this goldmine, this archive that we said in the video dates back to 1909. And we thought we need the technology to make use of all these assets, most efficiently that we can. So that's sort of what drove the project along.
Excellent. Yeah, well, I mean, 1909, some people don't realize that, but that's and of course, it's such an iconic game, and it's such a unique Australian game that whilst it's as much a sporting code, and as you said, it's the basis and I guess underpinning of a lot of society and things that have developed over those years. So we've got this legacy, and you've got this need to archive all this content. What was the challenges that you really had in trying to solve that? Because you had to make a decision to move from this analog tape on a shelf in a air-conditioned room that had all the risks associated with it, whether it be human error or God forbid, something more significant from a risk point of view. What were the things that you had to identify? Obviously, all the key challenges. So tell us a little bit more about what had to happen to take those tapes and actually get them into the cloud.
So for us, you really sort of nailed it there. It was a really pressing issue for the AFL, and one of our remits is actually to preserve the game or the legacy of the game for all, for the future. So we had these 22,000 tapes, which you saw decaying in a room, and some of it was really valuable footage. Like we mentioned, 1909 VFL Grand Final between Carlton and South Melbourne. That's on fragile material, fragile tapes that were relying on us the only way we could get is on obsolete technology for playback. So we needed to get onto it quickly because otherwise it would be lost forever. And that's the history of our game, but also, it's historical for, the nation as well, because there's some amazing historical archives that we have there. And so there was the time pressure, and it was costing us money to store it as well, and we weren't able to get it to our fans and monetize it. So before I got there, the team had been working on reviewing all the options of how to digitize it, who are the best vendors, and then also which DAMM or MAM was the best in market that could handle our requirements and what our future requirements are going to be. And then, thinking about, well, we've got a big studio set up and we create a lot of content for our platform. So how do we do it rather than centralized in Melbourne? How do we move it onto the cloud? And so, it was a lot of work. We had it all signed off in 2019 and we were about to press the button.
Hey guys, can I just give a bit of quiet? Sorry.
Go ahead.
No.
So the organisation was really fully supportive of it. But when the COVID hit, everything was put on hold, and then we said, okay, what do we do? But then, that's when we just said, well, we have to start it. We can't hold off any longer.
So you did mention there DAM and MAM. So for those of you in the audience, we're here for a DAM event, but you mentioned the word MAM, and in fact that's what I understand you've implemented. So media asset management is just an extension of DAM as a technology, but it's primarily designed for certainly high quality content production, video footage, and moving picture footage. So just for the audience there, it's a subset of DAM, but it's mainly aimed for video footage. So obviously you needed to use a MAM, should I say, because of the type of technology. But I'm as you were just saying there, you got it approved, but there's a lot of stuff that, I mean, I can only just imagine in my own head how much storage and how much data transfer, because we, for those of us who work in DAM, we all talk about the number of terabytes and stuff and the number of assets that are just still assets. When you talk about video footage, it's huge. So getting that project approved, not only for the initial piece of work that you had to do, which was to get it digitized, pay for that initial piece, but then there's the ongoing, right? There's the ongoing process of continuing to digitize that content moving forward, ensuring that it's stored for reuse and longevity. So tell us a little bit about the business process that you had to go through in order to get this approval off the ground.
Sure. So we presented the business case to the commission at the AFL, and so the commission is sort of like the board. So they were, so we need to put that business case together with all the costings. And as you said, it's such a big investment. The good thing though was that everyone at the AFL knew we had to preserve the footage and digitize it. And we're not any different. It's a passionate
thing, right? We have to keep the footage. It's really important.
Yeah, and we're not any different. Exactly, and most sporting bodies are in the same position as us, and so we'd seen and we'd spoken to a few of those, like Cricket Australia, who gave us some great insights as to what they went through. And so what we ended up doing is we needed to look at who we could partner with, and in the end we partnered with our digital partner Telstra to help us with that. And so what we also knew, and what really got it across the line, is we did a survey of our fans, and they listed Archive Vision, including match highlights, as the content they really wanted to see in our streaming channel, AFL On Demand. And they were also interested in documentaries and the history of the AFL and human interest stories. So we realised, well, we needed to have this, MAM for us set up so we can better utilise that. We needed that technology to better utilise the vision we had, and then monetize it. The whole point of the business case was to say, well, we're spending that money, but we know that we can then use that IP in documentary filmmaking.
That's great. So you basically surveyed your target audience, because I guess through memberships and those sorts of things, you're connected to these people who are passionate about the AFL.
Absolutely.
And look, that's really, it's great. It's validation of it. And as you said, talking to both the emotive sense of the organisation and your mandate, which is to preserve the history of the game. I guess in some ways they would find the money for it in that case. So we talked about fans, and the fans, like any sporting organisation, you need the fans. The fans watch the sport. Sport feeds the fans. It's a flowing process. So what's your strategy with fans moving forward? You talked about, you did your survey and you got to find out from the fans what they wanted. So what's the strategy now moving forward for I guess immersing them in this content that you've preserved?
So we want to have our content where our fans are on. So we've got our social platforms, but that's our aim. Our content is really created for the platform our fans are on. So we saw that consumption of video content had really accelerated, especially nostalgic content during lockdowns. And we're always trying new things. We're always trying new things and new content. We've got a sort of a test and learn approach in the digital team. And what we've done as well is we produce highlights using the statistical data through Champion Data is the people that actually deliver the statistics from the game, and we match that up with the matches as they come in, and then we're able to use AI technology to generate highlights. So we've been doing that for the last couple of years across our different leagues, AFL and AFLW, and soon on our state leagues, VFL, which starts Friday. And that's how it uses the statistical metadata to provide us 6-minute highlights or mini matches. So it's very important, and we know that's what the fans want, and that might sit on our website or our app, or might go onto our social channels to drive that engagement. And we're also we're moving into augmented reality. It's a whole bunch of exciting things that we're working on with our partner Telstra.
Okay, augmented reality. I guess the challenge with those sorts of things is you need the space to be able to do it. Otherwise you need the technology, but you also need the space. But yeah, wow, wouldn't that be amazing? You'd be able to go and you're in the grand final and go and kick your ball into the goals. That would be fantastic. Yeah, but yeah, I mean, look, you mentioned that COVID, that the opportunity to be focused on things that you are interested in, whatever that whether it be sport or a hobby or whatever the case may be, got a captive audience. And you're quite right. I mean, how many people now, even though we're slowly getting back to public transport and those sorts of things, we don't read very much anymore. We watch videos, whether they've got closed captions on them or not. Most of the time, whether it be podcasts or anything, we're listening and we're watching and we're doing that sort of engagement. And so being able to provide all this footage is, and I guess in some ways you've also got it's a bit like the glamour organizations that we're talking to later. You've got this history and you've got the ability to provide that information to researchers and to other people who are looking at cultural changes, or it could be psychological changes, or it could be all sorts of different research things that are coming along that they can approach you for and get that content to support that type of work. And that's one of the fantastic things about these types of technologies is that it does that. And we've been doing a similar thing with the Australian Ballet ourselves, which Damien will be talking to a little bit later on. But that ability to surface that content and make it accessible instead of it being buried in those rooms and only known to the people who've got the book and knows which folder and things that it's in and remember who's seen it. So that's really great. It's good that fans are first and foremost. So Spencer, over to you a little bit, mate. You're the guy that had to make it happen. So tell us a little bit. You got the management buying. You've understood what you want to do. You got the momentum. COVID's hit. So what happened next? Tell us a little bit more about sort of the end-to-end bit. What was the certainty? What were the goals? What was the access to the expertise and capability and the logistics behind it? Tell us a little bit more.
Well, what happened next? As soon as we got management buy-in, we grabbed the company credit card and headed out. No, to be serious for a moment, it's been a long journey for me. It's something that I've been passionate about for quite a while. But like any acquisition project and asset, when you've got a significant amount of assets, what we really needed to do was actually confirm exactly what we had. So truly assess it. And the best practice was, in fact, the AFL engaged the National Film and Sound Archives to come on site, on premise, and they catalogued every asset. Not only did they look at the physical state of the assets, they also catalogued and added new barcodes. So we had triple amount of information on exactly what we had as assets and exactly what we would expect to be on them. We really knew that we needed support on the implementation of the project, and the ongoing support, if we discussed a lot here, is the media asset management connectivity and the storage to go with it. So there's a hand-in-glove relationship in getting a whole lot of media assets digitized, and then there's another amount of work that you need to do to place it in storage to keep it in perpetuity, and then you need to be able to find it, right? So we then set about identifying a group who had expertise and significant expertise in actually taking the linear videotapes, and for want of a better term, for those of us who have had videotapes at home, we needed to play those assets in and then do quality control on them, and then obviously take that digital information with our digital partners come together, and that's how we kicked the project off.
Yeah, and you've got a wide range of machines and formats, right? Because I would imagine there was no such thing as a videotape back in the 1900s.
No, we actually had quite a bit of film, and the video we played at the top of.
I saw the beginning there, the really old footage. Yeah.
Yeah, some of that's not been surfaced, and in fact had been processed from its film to an older format of videotape. So it's
right.
One of the more exciting things that we'll be able to create for all our fans and for people, you know, going forward forever, is that we now preserve that film. Film, in fact, you know, it degrades by its nature, and we're really fortunate that we managed to maintain it in a state that allowed us to retrieve it and then digitize it.
Yeah, someone was forward thinking back then when they needed to turn the film that would, you know, back when the old nitrate film just disappears. Yes. And explodes, you know. So
yeah, correct. And it was something that, you know, that's where we actually had the engagement of the National Film and Sound Archives, who could do a not only visual but a technical assessment of where the film was. And as you said, that nitrate films, an old 16mm neg, become what they refer to as a vinegary, where it starts to degrade. So yep, fingers crossed. The AFL had invested a little bit in its future iterations in storage, and it had preserved them well.
Yeah, that's good. That's good forward thinking. But it's great that you're able to, we have that capability in the country, that National Film Archive, that says, hey guys, we're not experts in this, but you guys are. You've been cataloging all this stuff for years from all sorts of different places. Come and give us a hand, because we're part of the history, you know, kind of it's a hand in glove symbiotic relationship in that regard. But isn't that brilliant that they were able to come in and do that? So one of the things that I'm really interested in, because I love this stuff, being a nerd, is around the metadata process and structurally making sure that, because what I've always found with metadata is it's not about how you think you should file it, it's how people would likely look for it, right? It's all about the searchability and the surfaceability for metadata, not about necessarily, you know, time, date, stamp, all that kind of stuff.
Sure.
Because that makes sense from a production point of view, but not when you're trying to get it and access it from a consumption point of view. So tell us a little about that whole sort of metadata design and maybe how that might be a little bit unique to the project, the cloud, the MAM, you know, the particular things that you needed to deal with.
Well, yeah, unbeknown to the business, 20 years ago, back in 1992, in fact, the AFL acknowledged that maintaining and owning its video and film archive was an important alignment to the protection of the long-term future of the game. So what does that really mean? Well, not only did the AFL need to build a repository to house the item, but there was no point in having a bunch of videotapes that nobody knew what was on them. For those at home, I'm sure that there's wedding videos and assorted tapes in a box, in a shoebox somewhere in the walk-in wardrobe. So the AFL's original video production partner, who were now referred to as AFL Films, were very diligent in adding data to an old library system, which was really a system designed to actually archive books for a library, right? And in fact, you know, like it proved to be a futuristic and fortunate view that allowed the project to have foundation metadata, that is information about what's contained on the tape, and not only what's contained on the tape, what value it has. And when I mean by value, I mean that in Australian rules football, a goal may be a sensational version, or it may be a rudimentary kick and standing kick. So there's a value judgment were placed on a lot of things, which also is, you know, really important fact in just having statistical metadata. You need to have analytical metadata to get a truly data picture of what's on something. So by 2011, the AFL had taken over the ownership of their video production team, and in 2012 invested in the latest in digital technology here at AFL House, with matches now ingested directly live into the latest version, or the industry standard file-based media asset system known as EVS, quite a common a Belgium-based company that provides hardware and information for all broadcasters. So automatically, we're starting to align ourselves with broadcast methodologies and storage devices. So we're on the road to getting where we are today. So having already formulated the discipline of generating that metadata, the AFL then invested in resources, and that's another part in any other people who are scoping, that there's an investment in resources, because there's nothing still as good as human eyes to actually log and store detailed metadata for every game. And that was, as I described, that was where you put a value judgment on something that's sensational and or outside the game visually, crowd reactions, people jumping up, waving flags, etc. So where does that put us today? Today we have again pivoted to store the media in a cloud, and we have a robust and future-proof related metadata that ties it or puts a ribbon on it, I suppose you could say.
So that content that you're obviously shooting now, you got 4K, you've got high resolution. I mean, it's massive amounts of data.
Yeah.
The CVS stuff that's storing it now, are you then going back through that footage, chopping it up and then putting it into the DAMMAM as part of the archive as well? Is that part of the ongoing process?
Yeah, yes, it is, Andrew. In fact, the entire history of the game will be moved to the cloud, so that, you know, as we've said, the future generations will have an access to it, and it's preserved in multiple locations, so that it has a, while it's, you know, on spinning disk somewhere in the Nevada desert, it also has another base place where we could retrieve it should something unfortunate happen. Yeah, so it's kind of a little bit of nervousness about the fact that we're all tactile as human beings, and actually holding on to something as a tape means that you've still got it. So, you know, and physically hanging on to those tapes. So for us here that have been around a while, sending our precious little moments on trucks was, you know, we were a little nervous about it.
Yeah. Well, we'll take talking about that, because you have the actual physical only copy of whatever it is that your film and archives people have gone through and said, this is really critical, you need to transport it. So I would imagine some things would have been really, really delicate and have to be transported under some sort of climate control process. And some of them would have been, you know, a little bit easier to transport. But tell us around the logistics of how you got that stuff. You sent it to Canberra, right? So there was a place in Canberra that digitized all that stuff.
Yeah, going back, we selected an experienced bunch of a group, DAMMAM in Canberra, who have relationships with both the National Sound and Film Archives and several other broadcasters and sports organisation. Pragmatically, what they really were a group of guys that had worked in the days of videotape and had all the knowledge, and they'd come together, and they're passionate about you know, preserving items as well, and have the knowledge which is, you know, been lost on how to actually operate it. But I guess here was the look. I know a lot of you have been out there and had that jaw-dropping moment when the courier company rings you and says, you know, that parcel that was sent to creative folks, it's not, we don't know where it is, or who's been stranded in an airport while your bags are actually in Perth or London or Paris or Rome. So, you know, transporting
back memories of arriving in Berlin with nothing.
Yeah. So it would have been the situation if I'd gone to the commission and said, you know what, that truck, we don't have it anymore. It might have been, you know, the last hurrah. So transporting the precious items,
you know, could have been an accident or something that's completely out of your control, right?
Sure. Yep. So exactly. So transporting the precious items was something that needed to be well considered and well versed. So we actually chose a company that actually move fine pieces of art. So they're, you know, quite diligent, and you know, they acknowledge that dealing with precious cargo, and without going into too much detail about number of drivers and how many hours they drive and all sorts of things, and whether they send 2 pallets in different trucks, right? So so in the video we saw that it's some time-lapse photography of people actually physically grabbing all of those tapes with detailed information about what was on them, correlating that to the physical boxes, and then that same metadata, or so to speak, was extracted by DAMMAM to correlate what was in boxes. So we knew where each box was, what was in each box, where it was, and when it arrived.
And when you got to the other end, and making sure that someone unpacked it correctly and put it in the right machine, and all those other things associated with it. Yeah. So how long did it take from beginning to end to do all that? You know,
we did it over a period of about, it was before Christmas. It's probably taken about 5 months in practicality. So we drip fed it, as I said, that, you know, you wouldn't want to do a whole lot at once. We did it based on some science around the last things that actually went with the film, so that they were
that makes sense.
On their own.
Yeah.
And so we preserved them as long as we possibly could before they hit telecine. So yeah, we really needed to put more science than just it's not a removalist's job.
No, absolutely. So I mean, just conscious of time here.
Sure.
You've got this. I mean, you've digitized all this content, which really has, I guess, taken everything that's been in an analog sense now, even though it's kind of partly adapted from old analog to slightly newer analog to, but effectively we now have a pure digital form, which, as you said, is in the cloud, but it's actually on the ground. It's just on data centers around the world. It's funny how they call it the cloud, but it's actually on the ground. But anyway, but so tell us a little bit more. I mean, what there must have been some absolute gems that you found in there once you've gone through this stuff, because now it's all digitized. Someone's put it in a machine, it's digitized, it's sent into a DAMM, and then you got to look at it, right? You got to put eyeballs on it, you got to put your metadata around it, you got to do all those sorts of things. You must have come up with some absolute gems, like maybe that bit of the old footage at the beginning. And what have the AFL said about this? So there's some people in there going, we knew this was going to be a good project, but we didn't know it was going to be that good a project.
Yeah, it was. It's absolutely a tremendous project. Yeah, there's a massive appetite, as Monica mentioned earlier in the piece, that retro content per se is really important, and to bring the fans back to a time when there were no mobile phones and all matches were played at 2 o'clock on a Saturday afternoon. The VFL was a suburban football league, the precursor to the AFL. But however, you're right, the assets actually exist in the rough. So to maximise the potential, we'll spend significant amount of hours looking for the gold among the assets, and we know what it is, but we need to triage it, I suppose. And we're really looking to find a whole bunch of content that we didn't even know that we had. When I say that, there's parts of it that we hadn't recognised or wouldn't have done until we go back and reviewed it, and probably that means contextually, like it correlates to currently for those in the competition. There's a player who's about to kick 1,000 goals. If we can find him there'll be shots of him, perhaps.
99 other ones.
Well, we've got all those. We've actually got 3,500 edits to string them together, but. So that was facilitated quickly by the fact that yes, we had metadata, we had a MAM, and we could access that. So yeah,
So how many people are on that process? I mean, actually adding the metadata. One of the questions from Georgie Thomas is asking. There's a few people upvoting it here. Now, what's the resource effort? You've got all this footage, it's digitized. That's all the starting point. But how many people you've got on there actually adding the value?
Well, so we did it. There's 3 different layers to that. Thanks for the question. Is that as I described earlier? So all matches that have been ingested since 2012 have had one person per match watching it, adding analytical metadata that we've harvested and then able to marry with the video in the cloud. We had the old, which were actually all handwritten pieces of paper that were then typed manually into a repository. We took those XMLs or CSV files and reconverted them into digital metadata. And then the other layer is champion data, being the official statistical analytical part to it. That just provides you a whole lot suite of clickable items that you can look at in a scrubber on a time zone. So yeah, there's significant assets. So in fact, there's 207 people for 207 matches. 207
people for 207 matches.
That's it. That's correct.
Okay, 1 per match. There you go. Fantastic. Another question from the floor here is around the National Film Archives. Have you deposited those master videos in their archives? Are they looking after them now?
So we're in negotiations with that. They have that the assets or a large amount of them have significant historical value. So certainly some of the film and some of the previous have significant historical value for the nation. There's a bit of work on 2 things. One is that we wouldn't want to see old assets taken to landfill. So there are some of the types of plastic, some of the material is now redundant. So there's a little bit more work to do in disposal or.
But that's the goal. That's the goal.
The goal will be to have the significant national pieces sent to Deep Archive under the hill in Canberra, and then a really sensible and environmentally methodology for disposal.
Okay. And one last question to finish up.
Sure.
Did the AFL own all this footage in terms of usage rights? Because one of the challenges I face is actually identifying who owns it. So I guess you were a bit of it was a closed circuit in that regard. You own all of it. It's all your responsibility. It doesn't matter who's shot it and who's broadcast it over the years. AFL owns it, and you've dealt with that as a business decision some time ago.
Correct. Yep. It's our IP. So that's why we need to monetize it. And in the short term, we'll be looking at the archive and trying to monetize it with just match replays. But then ultimately it's to provide different formats, we could do quiz shows, we could do archival documentaries with that content and get it to our fans.
And you could syndicate it to quiz shows around the country and the world.
We could.
If they wanted to, you know, completely stun people in the UK with questions about the AFL. We could do that.
Exactly. What happens next? Yeah.
What happens next? Okay. Well, look, thanks very much for your time. I do appreciate it. Everyone for joining. Some great questions there. That was really interesting. Next up is the Tech Lab with Binder. So thank you for joining this initial session, and I'll see you shortly at our next stream. To Monica, Spencer, thank you very much for your time. I do appreciate it. And for everyone else joining, we'll see you soon.